Very good morning and welcome to Breakfast News. In the next 1 hour, we'll get you all the latest news and updates. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will today attend the 18th ASEAN-India Summit. Elaborated story on that. Also, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 103.99 crore mark, and all Delhi schools and colleges will reopen from 1st November. Big sigh of relief there. All of that and much more updates on T20 World Cup also. My name is Abhishek Mahajan and with me is my colleague Preeti. Good morning, Preeti.
Good morning, Abhishek, and a warm morning to all of you. Yes, it's a packed 1 hour ahead, a comprehensive show we get for you every morning to make sure that your day starts on the right note and to make sure that your tea or coffee tastes right, good in the morning. We bring you everything that's making it to the headlines, national updates, international updates, updates from the world of business, sports, a web news review, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, the top stories.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in the 16th East Asia Summit via video conference hosted by Brunei. PM highlights India's efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic through vaccines and medical supplies, speaks about Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign for post-pandemic recovery and in ensuring resilient global value chains.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend 18th ASEAN-India Summit to be held virtually today at the invitation of Sultan of Brunei. The summit to review the status of ASEAN-India strategic partnership. It will also take stock of progress made in key areas including COVID-19 and health, trade and commerce, connectivity and education and culture.
Union Health Minister chairs meeting with state health ministers on COVID-19 vaccination. PM Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission and Emergency COVID-19 Response Package. India soon to launch Har Ghar Dastak vaccination campaign for door-to-door vaccination in poor performing districts.
India's cumulative vaccination coverage crosses 103.99 crore, more than 44 lakh vaccine doses administered yesterday till 7 p.m. The country aims to cover all eligible population with first dose of COVID vaccine by end of November.
India successfully launches surface-to-surface ballistic missile Agni-5 from APJ Abdul Kalam Island. The missile is capable of striking targets at ranges up to 5,000 kilometers with a very high degree of accuracy. The successful test of Agni-5 is in line with India's stated policy to have credible minimum deterrence that underpins the commitment to no first use.
In Sudan, at least 10 people killed in firing by soldiers on pro-democracy protesters opposing military rule. World Bank suspends aid to Sudan following the military coup in the country. Political leaders, including Prime Minister, were arrested on Monday, sparking nationwide protests and international condemnation.
In T20 World Cup, Sri Lanka to take on Australia in their Super 12 match today. Yesterday, Namibia defeated Scotland by 4 wickets in Super 12 match to keep its dream alive in the tournament. In another encounter, England put on a clinical display with both bat and ball to beat Bangladesh by 8 wickets.
All right, those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail. We begin with the national headlines first. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will today attend the 18th ASEAN-India Summit to be held virtually at the invitation of Sultan of Brunei. The summit will be attended by heads of state and governments of the ASEAN countries. The 18th ASEAN-India Summit will review the status of ASEAN-India strategic partnership and also take stock of the progress made in key areas including COVID-19 and health, trade and commerce, connectivity and education and culture. Important regional and international developments including post-pandemic economic recovery will also be discussed.
Right, so the summit will review the status of ASEAN-India strategic partnership and take stock of progress made in key areas, including COVID-19 and health, trade and commerce, connectivity and education and culture. So very, very important summit, and trade, investment, economy expected to be the top focus between the two sides.
Also added to that, COVID pandemic would also be a very important topic that was to be discussed at this forum. And in the earlier also, in the past also, recent past, we've seen that the pandemic and the fight against the pandemic has been discussed at various fora. To talk more about it, our correspondent Arun Sharma is joining us. Arun, we've given a broad outline of the Prime Minister's participation in the 16th East Asia Summit via video conferencing, and how today Prime Minister will be participating in the 18th ASEAN-India Summit. We've given a broad outline of the issues and the topics that are to be taken up. You elaborate more.
Good morning to both of you. And indeed, this multilateral platform is very much significant as far as India's Act East policy is concerned. Now, we know this fact that in 2022, that means the year 2022, is also going to be very much significant because ASEAN-India relationship is going to complete 3 decades. That means 30 years of India-ASEAN relationship. So in that context, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision is going to be very much important, specifically in this post-COVID pandemic time. How will the ASEAN-India relationship will pan out? Now, yes, there are going to be various subsets as far as the ASEAN-India Summit this time around is concerned. That includes COVID-19 pandemic, specifically, managing the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 2, connectivity project is going to be very much significant as to how can ASEAN-India can come closer via connectivity projects. Now, interestingly, various, we know this fact that India and ASEAN are also connected via Buddhism, because a lot of Buddhist followers are there in ASEAN countries. When we talk about Ramayana circuit, there are a lot of cultural linkages as far as Ramayana circuit or Buddhist circuit is concerned. And recently also, we have inaugurated the international airport like Kushinagar. That primarily brings the ASEAN country members very much closer to India. So yes, in that context, a lot of infrastructure development has taken place in India that brings India and ASEAN together. So what more can be done as far as infrastructure construction is concerned, connectivity projects are concerned? India is building up, a lot of airports that focuses upon bringing ASEAN countries closer to India. So what more connectivity projects can be expected in this post-COVID pandemic time? How can better infrastructure facilities can be created? The focus can be on that aspect as well. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the focus can be on the fact that how can, the COVID-19 management can be done specifically as far as vaccines or equitable distribution of vaccine is concerned, because under Vaccine Maitri, India has started providing vaccine to its neighboring countries, and this will be expanded further as well to other countries as well. And ASEAN countries are, the countries that plays an important aspect as far as India's active policy is concerned. So in that context, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meet is going to be very much significant.
Right, Arun, and also the 10-nation ASEAN is considered one of the most influential groups in the region. And the ties between India and ASEAN, like you also said, have been on the upswing in the last few years. In this regard, how important and crucial you think this ASEAN-India Summit will be?
Well, absolutely. So the cultural linkage is going to be very much important. People-to-people connect is going to be very much important. And interestingly, as I mentioned earlier, Kushinagar Airport was inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So various initiatives have been taken in country like India, whereby by giving a boost to Buddhist circuit, by giving boost to Ramayana circuit, various infrastructure construction has taken place that brings ASEAN India closer to each other. Now, one more thing that is the demand of various countries, that is about the free movement of tourists and professionals primarily who work in various other countries. That or primarily, if in case you want to give boost to tourism, there has to be free movement with less restrictions in this post-COVID pandemic time. So in that context, how can major initiatives can be taken so that there is a free movement with less restrictions to the tourists, the passengers primarily, and of course to the professionals as well. So in that context, it is going to be very much significant as far as the ASEAN-India Summit is concerned, and COVID-19 vaccination part is going to dominate this ASEAN-India Summit, and of course, connectivity project, infrastructure projects is something that is going to dominate
Right.
this ASEAN-India Summit. And of course, last but not the least, it is about cultural ties or boosting people-to-people ties is very much likely to dominate the ASEAN-India Summit.
All right. Thank you so much for joining in. Arun, we'll come back to again during the day when the summit begins. As of now, thank you for joining in. So that was our correspondent Arun elaborating more on what is to be taken up when the Prime Minister will be attending the 18th ASEAN-India Summit. We'll keep you updated. Let's turn focus on two other updates now.
Absolutely. Talking about East Asia Summit now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the 16th East Asia Summit on Wednesday via video conferencing. The 16th East Asia Summit was hosted by Brunei as EAS and ASEAN chair. It saw the participation of leaders from ASEAN countries and other East Asia Summit participating countries including India, China, Japan, South Korea, Russia, USA and Australia. India has been an active participant of East Asia Summit. This was Prime Minister's 7th East Asia Summit. In his remarks at the summit, Prime Minister reaffirmed the importance of EAS as the premier leaders-led forum in Indo-Pacific, bringing together nations to discuss important strategic issues. Prime Minister highlighted India's efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic through vaccines and medical supplies. Prime Minister also spoke about Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign for post-pandemic recovery and in ensuring resilient global value chains. He emphasized on the establishment of a better balance between economy and ecology and climate sustainable lifestyle. The 16th East Asia Summit also discussed important regional and international issues including Indo-Pacific, South China Sea, UNCLOS, UNCLOS, terrorism and situation in Korean Peninsula and Myanmar. PM reaffirmed ASEAN centrality in the Indo-Pacific and highlighted the synergies between ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific and India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. The East Asia Summit leaders adopted 3 statements on mental health, economic recovery through tourism and sustainable recovery, which have been co-sponsored by India. Overall, the summit saw a fruitful exchange of views between Prime Minister and other ES leaders.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 5-day visit to Italy and United Kingdom tonight to attend the 16th G20 Summit and the World Leaders Summit of COP26. During the first leg of his visit, Prime Minister Modi will reach Rome to participate in the G20 Summit on 30th and 31st of this month at the invitation of Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi. The summit will be attended by heads of state of G20 member countries, European Union and other invited countries and also international organizations. Prime Minister will also hold several bilateral meetings, including one with Prime Minister of Italy on the sidelines. During the second leg of his visit, Prime Minister Modi will leave for Glasgow to attend the World Leaders Summit of the 26th Conference of Parties, that is COP26, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
And our correspondent Amritpal Singh visited Trevi Fountain in Rome, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with other G20 leaders, are expected to visit.
Right now I'm standing at the iconic Trevi Fountain of Rome. This fountain, which has been popularized by a lot of Hollywood movies. It is said that if you come to this place and throw 3 coins in this pool of water, you're likely to visit Rome again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with other participating leaders of the G20 who will be here in Rome over the weekend, that's October 30th and 31st, are expected to visit the Trevi Fountain during the G20 Summit. With my colleagues Pradeep Galotra and cameraman Rakesh Kumar, Amritpal Singh, Trevi Fountain, Rome, DD India.
All right, Amritpal is joining us to get us more on that. Amrit, Prime Minister will be embarking on his visit tonight. Spell out more. We've given a broad outline of the Prime Minister's engagements. We want you to elaborate first on them.
He doesn't seem to be connected. Amritpal, if you can hear us, PM Modi will attend a two-day G20 summit in Italy and expected to pitch for a united global approach in dealing with the situation in Afghanistan and combating challenges of climate change too?
All right, I think we've not been able to establish proper contact there with Amrit. We'll try getting back to him again to get us more on Prime Minister's engagements. Let's talk about other news now. The G20 Leaders Summit in Italy and the COP26 Climate Summit in the UK. Now, these two critical international summits are going to take place in close proximity to one another. Ahead of the Climate Summit, the leaders of the powerful G20 nations will have greater introspections to do, and the latest UN report makes it clear that the world is just not doing enough to avert a catastrophe. Now, what is more disturbing is that even the leading economies of the world represented by the G20 are not on track to achieve their original or the new 2030 pledges. We get you more in this report.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Rome on Friday morning to participate in the two-day G20 summit, he's expected to push for a united global approach in dealing with the situation in Afghanistan. Also, the Prime Minister is expected to push for a collective approach in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and also the climate change issue.
The G20 Leaders Summit will take place on 30th and 31st October in Italy. The G20 leaders are expected to deliberate on a number of key challenges such as recovering from coronavirus pandemic, overcoming poverty, inequality and security situation in various parts of the world. The situation in Afghanistan is also expected to figure prominently. The forthcoming summit will be centered around the theme People, Planet, Prosperity, focusing on areas of recovery from the pandemic and strengthening global health governance. It will also focus on economic recovery and resilience and energy transition and sustainable development along with food security. However, as leaders of the world's biggest economies gather in Rome for the G20, greater focus is likely to be climate crisis facing the world. The next COP26 meeting is taking place in Glasgow, UK, days after the G20 summit. The latest UN climate report rings the warning loud and clear. The annual emissions gap report by United Nations Environment Programme, which measures the gap between anticipated emissions and those consistent with limiting the temperature rise this century, as agreed in the Paris Accord. Current commitments to cut greenhouse emissions put the planet on track for an average 2.7 degrees Celsius temperature rise in this century. Governments will be in spotlight at the upcoming COP26 conference to meet a deadline of this year to commit to more ambitious cuts and pledges in what could be the last chance to put the world on track, limiting warming to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and ideally to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Global warming due to greenhouse gas emissions could breach 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next 2 decades. Greenhouse gas concentrations hit a record last year, and the world is way off track in capping rising temperatures. A 30% cut is needed to limit warming to 2 degrees Celsius, and a 55% cut is needed to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Current commitments to net zero could limit warming to around 2.2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, but 2030 pledges so far do not put major emitters on a clear path to this. As a group, G20 countries represent 80% of global emissions. They are not on track to achieve their original or new 2030 pledges. Fossil fuel production is not slowing at the rate needed, with major economies set to produce more than double the amount of coal, oil and gas in 2030 than is consistent with meeting climate goals. Report demonstrates the world would need 7 times more ambition to keep us on the 1.5 degree track. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged world leaders to avoid the climate catastrophe.
Less than 1 week before COP26 in Glasgow, we are still on track for climate catastrophe, even with the last announcements that were made. The 2021 emissions gap report shows that with the present nationally determined contributions and other firm commitments of countries around the world, we are indeed on track for a catastrophic global temperature rise of around 2.7 degrees Celsius. If there is no meaningful reduction of emissions in the next decade, we will have lost forever the possibility of reaching 1.5 degrees.
The warning comes as world leaders are set to meet at the G20 summit and later at COP26 climate summit to try and commit to a more ambitious climate pledge. It could be the last chance to reach the goal of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. The report states that G20 countries are not on track to achieve their original or new 2030 pledges. The G20 emerged as the premier global forum for international economic cooperation. It is the international forum that brings together the world's major economies. Its members account for more than 80% of the world GDP, 75% of global trade, and 60% of the population of the planet.
The Prime Minister is expected to hold bilateral meeting with his counterparts from the G20 countries, where bilateral issues and also global issues shall be discussed. Though G20 is primarily an economic forum, it increasingly is taking decisions and doing deliberations on issues which may fall in the realm of politics. And this is also expected at the 16th G20 Summit in Rome. With my colleague Pradeep Galotra and cameraman Rakesh Kumar, Amritpal Singh, DD India, Rome.
Right, so moving on to our next story now. With a view to speeding up COVID-19 vaccination drive, the union government is going to launch a mega vaccination campaign, Har Ghar Dastak campaign, in the poor performing districts to enthuse and motivate people towards full COVID vaccination. This was stated on Wednesday by Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare Dr. Mansukh Mandavia during the national review meeting with health ministers of various states. Talking to reporters, the health minister said under Har Ghar Dastak campaign, centre has asked states to campaign and go door to door to identify people and inoculate them, as even now 12 crore are still to get their second dose. Highlighting the need to accelerate the pace and coverage of vaccination, he stated that there are more than 10.34 crore people in the country who have not taken the second dose after the prescribed interval. The Union Health Minister said that adequate vaccine doses were available in the country and more than 12 crore balance unutilized doses are available with the states for administering. He exhorted to the states that no district should be without full vaccination. He further added that let us aim to cover all eligible with first dose of COVID-19 vaccine by end of November 2021.
हम हर घर दस्तक करके कोविड वैक्सीनेशन के लिए एक महाअभियान चालू कर रहे हैं। 1 महीने तक आज हमने निश्चय किया है कि घर घर में जाके सभी राज्य अपनी व्यवस्था करेंगे, घर घर पे जाएंगे, फर्स्ट डोज बाकी है उसको फर्स्ट डोज लगाने के लिए आग्रह करेंगे और लगाएंगे। सेकंड डोज जिन्होंने नहीं लिया है ऐसे 12 करोड़ लोगों को आइडेंटिफाई करके उसको भी वैक्सीन लगाएंगे। देश में 48 डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऐसा आइडेंटिफाई किया है जिसमें फर्स्ट डोज 50% से कम लोगों को लगाया गया है। उसको विशेष अभियान के समय में वैक्सीनेशन किया जाएगा। इस दृष्टि से कुल मिला के अगले दिनों में वैक्सीनेशन अभियान तेजी से चला के देश के नागरिकों को टीका लगे, इसलिए हमने विस्तार से चर्चा किया है।
India's COVID vaccination coverage has crossed 103.99 crore. Cumulatively, 103 crore 99 lakh 28,634 beneficiaries have been vaccinated so far under India's largest vaccination program. More than 44 lakh 21,000 vaccine doses have been administered till 7 p.m. yesterday, out of which 15 lakh 90,164 people got vaccinated in the last 24 hours and 22 lakh 30,840 were given the second dose of the vaccination yesterday.
And shifting focus now, all Delhi schools and colleges will reopen from 1st November. Briefing reporters in New Delhi on Wednesday, Deputy CM of Delhi, Manish Sisodia, after meeting with Delhi Disaster Management Authority, said parents will not be forced to send their kids to school. He said all classes will be conducted in blended or hybrid mode and 100% vaccination coverage for all staff of the schools will be ensured. Earlier, Delhi government had given permission to open schools from class 9th to 12th from September 1st. In March last year, schools in the national capital were ordered to be closed due to COVID-19 pandemic.
India has urged China not to undertake any actions under a new land boundary law that gives more power to the People's Liberation Army. MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that India expects that China will avoid undertaking action under the pretext of the law that could unilaterally alter the situation in the India-China border areas. In response to media queries on China's land border law, the official spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said, and I quote, "It may be noted that India and China have still not resolved the boundary question. Both sides have agreed to seek a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable resolution to the boundary question through consultations on an equal footing. We have also concluded several bilateral agreements, protocols and arrangements to maintain peace and tranquility along the LAC in India-China border areas in the interim. In this regard, China's unilateral decision to bring about a legislation which can have implication on our existing bilateral arrangements on border management as well as on the boundary question is of concern to us. Such unilateral move will have no bearing on the arrangements that both sides have already reached earlier, whether it is on the boundary question or for maintaining peace and tranquility along the LAC in India-China border areas. We also expect that China will avoid undertaking action under the pretext of this law, which could unilaterally alter the situation in the India-China border areas. Furthermore, the passage of this new law does not, in our view, confer any legitimacy to the so-called China-Pakistan Boundary Agreement of 1963, which the Government of India has consistently maintained is an illegal and invalid agreement.
Okay, time for a short break. On the other side, more stories.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Hindu ni hao.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Nahnu hunud.
India.
Ma Hindi hasti.
Hindian. Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back. Going to our previous story again, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 5-day visit to Italy and the United Kingdom tonight to attend the 16th G20 Summit and the World Leaders Summit of COP26. And during the first leg of his visit, Prime Minister Modi will reach Rome to participate in the G20 Summit from 30th to 31st of this month at the invitation of Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi. Well, our colleague Amritpal joins us to give us more information on this. He is joining us live from Rome, Italy. Amritpal, PM will attend a 2-day G20 summit in Italy, and he is expected to pitch for a united global approach, like we said earlier, in dealing with the situation in Afghanistan, combating challenges of climate change and also the challenges of coronavirus pandemic and the ways to tackle it.
That's right, Abhishek. The Prime Minister, when he arrives here, tomorrow morning. He leaves Delhi late this evening, and he arrives here tomorrow morning in Rome. He'll be essentially at the G20 summit talking about, how the world should deal with the situation in Afghanistan. Whether to give recognition to Taliban or not, and secondly, how to, even if the world is not ready to give recognition to Taliban at the moment, how to reach out to the Afghan people given the evolving humanitarian crisis there. So that will be the key focus that the world leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will deliberate upon in this two-day summit. The other issue, as I said in my report, would be about the climate change, and it comes at a time when just before the Glasgow summit on the COP26 summit, where how the world now needs to act towards achieving those goals that they had set for themselves, because the time is running out. How to minimize those divergences. Also, the Prime Minister could put out proposals to the G20 for their consideration on how the developing world is, what the developing world is doing, and how the developed world could do more to bridge the gap between their positions for a negotiated solution that could see some forward movement. Apart from that, as I said, the COVID-19 pandemic, should there be a global fund? The Sherpas are already meeting. They're chalking out the nitty-gritties of what could be achieved. The Indian Sherpa Piyush Goyal is already in Rome. He's meeting with his counterparts to see how positions can be brought closer and what sort of drafts can be put together where negotiated settlements could lead to some sort of achievements where the leaders could agree on that. So these would be the key focuses of the upcoming G20 summit. Abhishek?
All right. Amrit, in your report also you talked of how the G20 primarily was a group to focus on the economic aspects and how it has now, widened its outlook, bringing in more, concentrating more on the politics as well. Having been started in 1999, now this, the group is in fact, it includes the largest economies of the world. I want you to elaborate how far has it come till now, and when we're talking of its relevance and the issues that will be taken up by the leaders at this forum, how important a platform is this G20 as a forum?
That's a good question, Priti. Now, these are 20 major economies of the world. They control about 80% of the world GDP, about 70% of the world trade, 60% of the world population. So when leaders of these countries get together and take decisions, they have a very far-reaching impact on how the way the world works. Be it climate change, or be it political decisions on Afghanistan, or be it dealing with a pandemic of the proportion of COVID-19. When these countries meet, when the heads of state and government of these countries meet and arrive at solutions, what happens is that it does have an impact on not just on these 20 major economies of the world, but also on the rest of the world. The leaders essentially would be looking at taking decisions on, say, if there is a global fund to be established on dealing with pandemics like COVID-19, the current pandemic, or vaccination of the world. Now, say countries who are not even part of the G20, how to provide vaccines to them, where the production will take place, so that these decisions impact the whole earth or the whole globe in that sense. So when the leaders are meeting over the weekend, these important decisions will have a global impact. Priti?
All right, Amrit, thank you for joining in with those inputs. That is our correspondent Amrit Pal telling us more and spelling out the areas of concern that would be taken up at the G20 forum. And the Prime Minister will be embarking for Italy tonight. We'll keep you updated.
Absolutely. Moving on to our next story now. Bombay High Court is likely to give verdict on bail pleas of Aryan Khan Arbaz Merchant and Munmun Dhamecha today. All three accused have completed their arguments on Wednesday, and the Narcotics Control Bureau will be filing its submission before Justice N.W. Sambre. On Wednesday, former Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi has argued for Arun Khan and has referred to Article 21 and 22 of the Indian Constitution, which says that no person should be arrested or shall be detained in custody without being informed about the grounds for arrest and shall have the right to consult a lawyer of his choice. He contended that the arrest memo did not give true and correct grounds for arrest. He said that these constitutional articles are more important than Section 50 of the CRPC. He argued that the remand application is misleading, as if to make one feel that large quantities were recovered from Arun Khan. He concluded his arguments, and then advocate representing co-accused Arbaz Merchant and Munmun Dhamecha also argued. Additional Solicitor General Anil Singh is likely to file its submission before the High Court today. NCB has already raised strong objection and has opposed the bail pleas on various grounds.
International Film Festival of India, that is IFFI, has invited applications from young filmmakers across the country to encourage and recognize young creative minds and budding talent in the country. Out of these, 75 creative minds will be selected by a committee comprising of eminent film personalities to attend the 52nd International Film Festival. We get to more.
India's biggest and Asia's oldest festival, IFFI, not only showcases India's rich storytelling traditions, but also provides a platform to young filmmakers, distributors and other film enthusiasts to interact and exchange cultural expressions. With an endeavour to encourage and recognise young creative minds and budding talent in the country, the International Film Festival of India invited applications from young filmmakers across the country. 75 creative minds will be selected by a committee comprising eminent film personalities to attend the 52nd International Film Festival. Applicants should have showcased their skills in at least 2 short films in feature and non-feature modes in one of the following categories: direction, editing, cinematography, sound recording, acting, playback singing, production design, script writing. The applicant should be an Indian national, not above 35 years of age. The films may be in their original language, but must be subtitled in English. The films accredited to the candidate shall not be older than 3 years as of 1/10/2021. The applicants may participate by sending in their duly filled and scanned application forms at india75.ifi@gmail.com. This form is available on the websites www.dff.gov.in and www.ifigoa.org. The selection committee will comprise eminent film personalities and jury members. The committee will shortlist 150 applicants from all the entries received and then select the finest 75 creative minds of tomorrow from them. The decision of the committee shall be final and binding, and no appeal or correspondence regarding their decision shall be entertained. The selected 75 creative minds of tomorrow will be invited to attend the 52nd International Film Festival of India, Goa 2021, with an access to all the master classes, in-conversation sessions, along with other activities. Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, from national now, let's move on to our next segment, which is Web News Review.
All right, to get us the Web News Review, Vikas Arthi is joining us. Vikas, good morning. Let us know what all have you picked up for us in this section.
Good morning, Preeti. The first news is related to the COVID. In Delhi, there was a survey conducted for serum tests, and out of those 28,000 samples, it has been found that more than 90% samples have reported presence of antibodies, and this is good news because it can be the assumption is that because of the large number of presence of large number of antibodies, the next wave may not hit Delhi as badly as it has done in the previous occasions. So more than 90% samples have reported presence of antibodies. Another news, the second news is also related to COVID. Now, the Union Health Minister has said that from next month onwards, the government will introduce door-to-door vaccination program, and this will certainly help elderly people and other people who cannot go to the vaccination center to get their jab. The third story is related to the new law which has been passed by China, and the India Ministry of External Affairs of India has registered its protest, and it said that China should not do anything unilaterally which influences the current position of both countries across the line of actual control. So India has registered its protest. The next story is related to the successful test of Agni 5 missile, and most of the websites and newspapers have reported that this is very significant in the wake of the ongoing tension with China, and this is intercontinental ballistic missiles, and its range is 5,000 kilometers. This Agni missile 5 is better in terms of its previous version, that it can be transported to any point very easily, unlike its previous versions. Another news is from the social media. The government has got information from Facebook about its algorithms after receiving reports that Facebook is well aware of the spread of fake news and hate speech, but it was not doing enough to curb those kind of material on its social networking platforms. So the government has got information from Facebook regarding those issues. That's all for now. Back to you, Preeti.
All right. Thank you, Vikas, for joining in with that web news review. And from here, let's turn focus on to international updates in our segment Across the Globe.
The World Bank halted disbursements for operations in Sudan on Wednesday in response to the military seizure of power from a transitional government. World Bank President David Malpass in a statement said the World Bank paused disbursements in all of its operations in Sudan on Monday, and it has stopped processing any new operations as we closely monitor and assess the situation. It was the latest blow to the improvised African nation. Earlier, the United States also suspended aid to the country. The World Bank and IMF in June granted Sudan debt relief under the heavily indebted Poor Countries Initiative, cutting the nation's debt in half to about $28 billion, and the institutions have offered additional help if economic reforms continue.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets since Monday's coup led by Armed Forces Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Now, the state oil company workers, doctors and pilots have also joined the civilian groups opposing the takeover. So far, at least 10 were killed in the clashes with security forces. Sudan State Television late on Wednesday reported that Burhan had relieved 6 Sudanese ambassadors from their posts, apparently because they rejected the military takeover. The 6 were envoys to the United States, the European Union, China, Qatar, France, and the head of the mission to Geneva.
India, meanwhile, will continue to support Sudan and South Sudan in their journey towards peace and development. The counselor in India's permanent mission to the UN, A. Amarnath, said India, as a long-standing partner, will continue to support Juba and Khartoum in their journey towards peace and development. He was speaking at UNSC briefing on UNISFA and South Sudan on Wednesday. India has contributed to the development of both Sudan and South Sudan countries by means of bilateral assistance and projects. The councillor said India has long-standing and mutually beneficial friendly relations with both the nations. He also said New Delhi has contributed to the development of both the countries by means of bilateral assistance and projects. India also called on both Sudanese and South Sudanese authorities to facilitate early resolution of long-pending issues such as visas for police personnel, reaching an agreement on the civilian deputy head of the mission, and operationalization of the Athni airstrip. The councillor also highlighted humanitarian situation in Abyei area remains challenging, particularly in the context of COVID-19 pandemic.
Abdallah Hamdok, the deposed Prime Minister of Sudan, was in good health when visited by envoys from France, Germany, Norway, the United Kingdom, the United States and the European Union, and also the United Nations. The UN mission in Sudan, in a tweet post, has informed about Hamdok. The West has called for restoration of the council and the release of civilian leaders.
Meanwhile, UN Special Representative Volker Perthes met Burhan on Wednesday and told him the United Nations want to see a return to the transition process and the immediate release of all those arbitrarily detained.
And up next, we take a look at the global figures when we talk of COVID situation from across the world. So far, more than 24 crore 57 lakh people have contracted the virus, while the number of recoveries stands above 22 crore 27 lakh globally. The virus has claimed over 49 lakh 87,000 lives worldwide, and the US continues to remain the worst affected with the disease, where the number of cases have crossed 4 crore 65 lakh, while the deaths have remained above 7 lakh 61,000.
Moderna said the COVID-19 vaccine could start to be used in children and teens in the United States within weeks. Moderna CEO Stephen Bancel said, based on dialogue with the US Food and Drug Administration, he believes his company's COVID-19 vaccine will be authorized for 12 to 17-year-olds in the next few weeks. Moderna plans to apply for separate US regulatory clearance in children ages 6 through 11 very soon. Moderna expects to publish data from its vaccine study of children as young as 6 months to 6 years by the end of this year. Or early in 2022, Moderna applied for US authorization of its shot for those aged 12 to 17 in June. It published positive data from a clinical trial in children aged 6 to 11 this week, but has not yet submitted an application to regulators for that age group. Earlier, a panel of advisors to the FDA on Tuesday backed the use of Pfizer's shot in children aged 5 to 11. That still needs authorization from the FDA and US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
And Russia hit another record for daily COVID deaths on Wednesday as authorities across the country moved to keep most people off work in line with a Kremlin order aimed at stemming the spread. The Kremlin has cautioned Russians against traveling during a non-working period ordered by Moscow to stem a spike in the infections and deaths. President Vladimir Putin last week ordered the week-long paid holiday between October 30th and November 7th in a bid to reverse rising infections in the country, one of the worst affected in Europe. The government COVID task force registered 1,123 deaths in the last 24 hours. That is the largest daily toll since the pandemic start. The number brought the country's official death toll to 2,33,898. Now, this is by far the highest in Europe.
Right, so from across the globe to our next segment now, which is Sports Track.
Let's talk of cricket first. Namibia started their Super 12 campaign on a winning note as they beat Scotland by 4 wickets in the ongoing T20 World Cup at Abu Dhabi on a Wednesday evening. Now, after inviting Scotland to bat first, Ruben Crumpelman helped Namibia start on a strong note and restricted Scotland to 109 for 8 in 20 overs. Crumpelman picked 3 wickets in the first over, a blow from which Scotland could never recover. In response, Namibia got off to a decent start, maintaining a check on the required run rate. The team did lose 3 quick wickets in the middle overs, but JJ Smith's cool composure helped Namibia complete the run chase with 5 balls to spare.
Talking about the second match now, England produced yet another phenomenal performance with the ball to restrict Bangladesh to 124 for 9 in Abu Dhabi. Moeen Ali's double strike in the third over set the tone for Bangladesh's innings as the side failed to recover from the early setbacks. Moeen Ali's dismissals of Lytton Das and Mohammad Naeem actually changed the game. Timal Mills was the pick of the bowlers, picking 3 wickets in the innings, while Liam Livingstone dismissed Mushfiqur and Mahmudullah to return impressive figures in 3 overs. Earlier, Bangladesh had won the toss and opted to bat first.
Also in the T20 World Cup, 2 matches will be played today. In the first match, Bangladesh team will take on field of Sharjah against West Indies. Now, both Bangladesh and West Indies have lost their first 2 matches, so both are looking for a victory. Talking about the last 5 T20 matches played between these 2 teams, Bangladesh has won 3, while the West Indies team has managed to win 2 matches.
And in the second match to be played today, Sri Lanka will face Australia in Dubai. Both Sri Lanka and Australia have won their first match, so both would like to continue their winning streak in this match as well. The Sri Lankan team, which reached the Super 12 through the qualifiers, has so far won all their matches, performing tremendously in the tournament.
And Kidambi Srikanth suffered a heartbreaking defeat against top seed Kento Momoto to make a second round exit. Now, Kidambi Srikanth was defeated by world number 1 Kento for 18-21, 22-20 and 21-19 in a match that lasted 79 minutes. There was a tough fight between the two, but Srikanth could not convert the good lead into victory.
Right, so we were talking about French Open there. Moving on, it's 28th October today. Every day we on DD India bring you a special story on India's freedom struggle. In today's episode of Saga of Freedom, we will pay tributes to freedom fighter and social worker Sister Nivedita. She was very much influenced by Swami Vivekananda, who changed her thinking and life. She played an important role in relief work during the plague disease in Kolkata in 1899. He appealed youth to do selfless service for country's interest and gave her all for India.
October is the birth anniversary of the revolutionary and social activist Sister Nivedita. Born as Margaret Elizabeth Noble in Ireland on October 28, 1867, she belonged to a family of revolutionaries. Her grandfather, John Noble, father, Samuel Richmond, and her maternal grandfather, Hamilton, were in the forefront of the Irish freedom struggle.
After completing her college education, she took to teaching for 10 years from 1884 to 1894. Sister Nivedita met Swami Vivekananda in 1895 in London and travelled to Kolkata in 1898. She became Swami Vivekananda's disciple, who gave her the name Nivedita, meaning dedicated to God, when he initiated her into the vow of Brahmacharya on the 25th of March, 1898.
During May to October 1898, Sister Nivedita went on a tour of Almora and Kashmir region, accompanying Swami Vivekananda. In Kashmir, she observed how the British government refused permission to the Maharaja to hand over a piece of land to her guru to set up a mutt and a Sanskrit college. She realized that the emancipation of India could be achieved only by putting an end to the British rule.
In March 1899, when plague raged in Kolkata, Sister Nivedita organized a group of young men and engaged herself in relief operations. She was seen in every slum in Bagh Bazar area with a broom in her hand, cleaning the streets. In the middle of June 1899, Nivedita left for England. Later, she went to America on a lecture tour with a view to raise funds for her school.
During her visit to Boston, she met Bipin Chandrapal. When Sister Nivedita returned to England, she had to face the vile propaganda of British imperialists. But this only kindled the revolutionary spirit in her. In 1902, she came back to India. Upon her arrival in Chennai, she was accorded a grand reception during which she proclaimed, "The people of India are fully competent and no outsider has the right to advise or interfere in their affairs."
Her speech won her admiration but aroused the anger of the British, who blacklisted her. The Nivedita Girls' School in Kolkata, run by her, was a brilliant example to nationalist institutions all over the country. Sister Nivedita refused to take government aid for the school. She introduced Bande Mataram in the daily newspapers of her school at a time when singing of the patriotic song in public was an offence. She also introduced Swadeshi and the spinning wheel in the school.
In 1902, when Viceroy Lord Curzon appointed the University Commission to strangulate the national education system, Sister Nivedita came to the forefront. In protest against the move from 1906 to 1907, she remained busy with her journalistic work.
Besides writing editorials for the publication Prabuddha Bharat, she was also contributing to journals like Sandhya, The Dawn and New India. In 1907, she left for England to set a favourable atmosphere for the Indian independence through meetings and interviews with British parliamentarians and writings in English journals. Sister Nivedita organized the publication of revolutionary journals from outside India and arranged for their secret distribution in India. She also organized Indian revolutionaries scattered abroad.
When Sister Nivedita returned to India in 1909, most of her associates were in jails. She passed away on 13th October 1911 at the age of 43 in Darjeeling. Her memorial is located on the way to Victoria Falls of Darjeeling with these words inscribed in her epitaph. Here lies Sister Nivedita, who gave her all to India.
All right, up next we get you temperatures across major cities in the country. All right, that's it in this edition of Breakfast News this morning. But before we go, we leave you with this reminder every day. Wear a mask, wear it correctly and properly. All those eligible, go and get yourself vaccinated. And also keep following the COVID-appropriate behavior. This is the best you can do to keep up the fight against the pandemic and contribute towards it as a responsible citizen.
Right, and we are showing you the visuals from Jammu and Kashmir, where Sufiana musical evening at the Botanical Garden in Kashmir enthralled the audiences during the ongoing iconic festival. Take a look.
Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.